See what happened last week. What was it? 3-9, 4-8. Did I luck out and wait? Right? I had a good week. I finally had a good week. Finally. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the CFL in 2023, where Dustin Crum is the truth. Nobody else knows who their quarterback is going to be, and I'm celebrating 7-4-1. Holy cow. Thank God. Welcome to week number 8 of my weekly CFL football pick show. I'm Justin. I'm Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube. I'm Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. I'm sponsored by the great folks at Nerd Tees, and holy cow, does 7-4-1 ever feel incredible after the last 6 weeks of trudging through the mud. 7 weeks, in fact, of trudging through the mud. 7-4-1 last week, including going 4-0 straight up, which I think might be the first time I've done that all season long. God, it feels so good to finally just rip off a good week, get that Band-Aid off, get the monkey off my back, moving forward here. Do I smell maybe the beginning of the turnaround? Obviously, I'm not going to get too far ahead of myself there. I'm still, I think, 16 full picks underwater on the season overall. So I've still got, obviously, a lot of work to do. But my God, does 7-4-1 ever feel satisfying after this like cavalcade of 3-9s and 5-7s. Like 5-7 was starting to look like the last couple of folks around the bar at last call. What also feels good was an exceptionally strong showing in CFL fantasy in week 7. I said it, Dustin Crum is the truth, and probably the best call that I've made of any call that I've made so far this season was Ottawa beating Calgary and Dustin Crum balling out. So Week 7, 127.3 on the fantasy score, which was top 225 across the entire game. If you'll recall, if we go back to last week, what was I? Outside the top 10,000. So to be inside the top 225 the very next week, ooh, that feels good. Top 30 in Derek Taylor's league. I was 27th overall in week 7. On the season, 684.6 on my score, which is top 525 across the entire game. And I've moved well inside the top 90 of Derek Taylor's league at number 82. Obviously, my most outstanding player is going to be no surprise to anybody. It is Ottawa quarterback Dustin Crum. Put up 320 all-purpose yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks, a clean game, ran the ball exceptionally well. Good for 26.3 fantasy points and my 2 times captain multiplier. So 52.6 points put up by Dustin Crum. I said it on Twitter. It's Dustin Crum and nobody else at quarterback in fantasy. It really paid off last week. Obviously, we're in a celebratory mood here this week. We're celebrating the fact that we did 7-4-1 last week and finally got off the schneid. We're celebrating the fact that Touchdown Atlantic takes place this week. I will be in attendance. I'll be in the crowd. I'm going to pass that celebration on to you. The do's and don'ts for the CFL. It's going to happen here in week 8. A do and a don't for each team heading into this week's 4 slate of games. Those games are the Ottawa REDBLACKS at home playing host to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. You got the Saskatchewan Roughriders and Toronto Argonauts coming to Halifax, Nova Scotia to have Touchdown Atlantic this week. You got the BC Lions traveling to Edmonton to take on the Elks. And you've got the Calgary Stampeders and the Montreal Alouettes taking place in Montreal. Alouettes coming into this game off the bye. In terms of league-wide trends that I've been paying attention to, it's basically a near even split so far on the season in terms of winning games straight up, either on the road or at home. I think road teams are like 14-13. Like they're right. It's basically a fully even split there. However, road teams are hitting against the spread 60% of the time this season, and the lion's share of that are road favorites. Road favorites are hitting over 63.5% so far in the CFL. There is one such team this week. That is the BC Lions in Edmonton. They're actually a heavy favorite against Edmonton, but that's something to pay attention to. Road teams are hitting against the spread especially road favorites. Let's go to Ottawa now. Again, the Redblacks are going to play host to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and we're going to kind of flip it up. Usually we talk about the road teams first. I want to talk about the de facto home teams first this week. If you are the Ottawa Redblacks, do stay punishing on the ground. The Redblacks as a team, since Dustin Crum took over as starting quarterback, and once again, a lot of this is Dustin Crum himself, but since Crum took over as the starting quarterback, the Redblacks have 51 carries in 2 games. Let's just stop right there. 25 to 26 carries per game on average. That is a commitment to the run game in a big bad way. That's knowing your run game is great, knowing your offensive line is clicking, and knowing you can move the ball. 51 carries, they've turned that into 334 yards rushing, so almost 170 yards per game on the ground in their last 2, and not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 rushing touchdowns. 2 coming from Dustin Crum, and 2 coming from third stringer Ante Milanovic-Litre, because of course. If you are the Redblacks, don't start buying the hype. We all know how the tier list works in the CFL right now. You basically got the 3 teams at the top, the 3 elite teams in this league, and then there's just kind of everybody else, and everybody else to some degree has shown flashes of greatness this year. Then you've got Edmonton, who's still looking for their first win. No disrespect, but they're still looking for their first win. I saw a ranking earlier yesterday that had the Redblacks as the 4th best team in the CFL. Let's pump the brakes on them a little bit here. And the worst thing that the Redblacks could do right now, after coming from where they've come from, the worst thing they could do right now is start patting themselves on the back. Start buying their own hype. It is very easy for this team to turn right back around and be just as bad as their worst has been this season and in prior seasons. That's kind of on the edge of a knife here. But if you start seeing like, hey, we're the 4th best team in the CFL, you start kind of doing your victory laps mentally. They cannot afford to do that. If you're the Hamilton Ticats, do remember who the hell Tim White is. Tim White in his last 2 games has touched the ball 4 times. Now, he might not be 100% healthy. That's usually what that would indicate. But he's turned those 4 touches into 80 yards. So that's 20 yards a touch. Seems like he's doing okay. How about we get him the ball a little bit more? If you're the Hamilton Ticats, don't shoot yourselves in the foot. And you know what I'm about to start talking about. The Hamilton Tiger Cats in the last 3 weeks, 33 penalties for 270 yards. That's 2.5 football fields worth of penalties in 3 games. You can't. You simply cannot do it. It's 11 for 90 on average in your last 3 games. It's not a matter of, well, it would be nice if they cleaned this up. It's a requirement. You have to clean this up. I do have a chance of rain mid-game in this one, so that may wind up impacting the total a little bit. Also, of interest, Bo Levi-Mitchell has returned to Ticats practice in a limited capacity. He split first team reps with Taylor Powell in practice yesterday, but according to Coach Steinauer, there is no pressure on him to play. So I think I think the timetable was like mid-August. So this feels like it would be rushing him back in a big way and against a team that's got a pretty good pass rush. So I don't see that happening. I think it'll be Taylor Powell once again this week for the Ticats. I got to lean on the more efficient team, which is Ottawa, on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively, despite how much Jake Mayer kind of ripped him up in the pass game last week. I got to lean on the more efficient team that's playing better today. That's Dustin Crum and the Ottawa Redblacks. Let's take Ottawa at home to get the win here over the Ticats. Good East Division matchup. Ottawa gets the win over Hamilton. On the line, Ottawa's laying -3.5 here as a home favorite. I did briefly consider the hedge here because there's a big possibility that Hamilton could wind up winning this game. If Bo Levi-Mitchell winds up playing, and if he plays better than he did at the beginning of the season, then Hamilton could certainly win this game. So I did briefly consider kind of hedging against that by taking the points with Hamilton, but it's such a thin hedge, 3.5 points. I don't love it, even though Ottawa's last 2 wins would have covered plus 3.5 for their opposition. It was a 3-point win and a 2-point win. I think I got to lay the minus 3.5 here on Ottawa. It might be a little bit stinky, but I do think they're going to win. So let's lay the minus 3.5. Total in the game here set at 49. I just feel a lot of points in this one. Dustin Crum has made me a believer in what he's able to generate with this Red Blacks offense. Let's go over this point total, over 49 points in Hamilton, Ottawa. Let's go Red Blacks 28, Ticats 23. I think the Ticats will be able to generate more offense than maybe we've seen over the last couple of weeks. So let's take the over, 28-23, Red Blacks win, and Red Blacks cover the minus 3.5. Because I like to be a little self-serving, let's do the Touchdown Atlantic game last. Let's wait until the end to talk about Touchdown Atlantic. That means we're going to be going to Edmonton now, where the Elks are going to play host to the BC Lions. The Elks trying not to continue this unprecedented home losing streak. They're about to set a new record if they lose, and they drew one of the worst possible opponents in this league to have to play to try to avoid that. If you're the Edmonton Elks, do stay run committed no matter what. Look, clearly there's no quarterback solution here. Again, I might be the last Cornelius defender, but he might not be the answer. It doesn't look like they're willing to give Trey Ford a shot, despite the fact that they drafted him, 8th overall the year they drafted him. So if there's no solution at quarterback, you got to focus elsewhere. And you might as well focus on what might be your next best player on offense, which is probably Kevin Brown. So I would say focus on the run game, stay committed to it. Utilize the run game from the quarterback position as well, which they've been doing a little bit more over the last couple of weeks, letting Taylor Cornelius run the ball where he is dangerous and effective. But if you're the Elks, don't sacrifice the micro for the macro. This fan base wants a win, all right? Obviously, they're 0-7. They've lost whatever it is, 19 straight home games. This fan base is desperate for a win and probably deserves one, if we're being perfectly honest. But winning games as a concept is weeks away for the Elks. They need to focus on doing little things right. Winning key areas, winning games at the line of scrimmage on offense, winning games at the line of scrimmage on defense, establishing your run. So you got to start small. Montreal, same deal. They had to establish that they will run the football and run it down your throats, and they built their success around that. The Elks need to do the exact same thing. Focus on smaller areas and finding consistent winning habits in those smaller areas before you start talking about, hey guys, let's go out there and really win this game. That's weeks away. If you're the BC Lions, do remember who the heck Dominique Rhymes is. We just talked about this with Tim White. Dominique Rhymes, since week 1, has played 4 games. He's caught 10 balls in 4 games. He has 167 yards with those 10 catches, so no problems there. And 3 of those 10 catches have been touchdowns. Now, he has no touchdowns in back-to-back games, but maybe, once again, maybe we get that guy the ball a little bit more. Probably a good idea. And if you're the BC Lions, don't, and this is very important, don't get caught looking ahead. BC goes to Winnipeg next week. Obviously a marquee matchup in the West Division. You cannot overlook the team that's in front of you based on the team that's over the hill. You just can't do it. Once again, this is another one where you could see some rain mid-game, but it's only about a 50-50 shot, so you might see it, you might not. Obviously, Vernon Adams getting hurt last week was bad news, but they got good news off of that bad news. Could have been a lot worse. I expect you'll probably see maybe 2 starts for Dane Evans here. There's no reason for BC to rush Vernon Adams back, so I figure they'll sit him this week. They'll get him fairly heavily involved in practice next week, but I don't see him starting the game against Winnipeg. I think it'll be Dane Evans for the next 2 games. I think you hand this one to your defense. You've got obviously incredible pieces on offense, but hand it to the guys on the defensive side because it's head and shoulders the best defense in football. So hand it to the defense, let the defense roll in this one. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Very heavily on the BC Lions here on the road in Edmonton to get the win over the Elks. And how heavily am I on the Lions? I'm actually going to lay those -9 points. They're favored by 9 points on the road in Edmonton. We talked about road favorites hitting heavily against the spread this year. This is a great team against a bad team. Let's lay the -9 and not think too much more about it. Total in this game is 43.5. It's the smallest total of the week, but I'm going to stay under on it. I don't know what I'm going to see offensively from the Edmonton Elks. I know their efficiency is the worst in the league. I know BC's defensive efficiency is the best in the league, and it's only getting better. So I don't see a lot of points from Edmonton's side. So, and then with Dane Evans as the starting quarterback on the other side, I don't expect him to completely light this game on fire. Edmonton's defense is not terrible. So give me the under on this number, under 43.5 points in BC Edmonton. Let's go Lions 23, Elks 10. We'll give them 10 points. So we're going to stay under, obviously, on the points, like BC to win the game, and I'll take the Lions to cover -9. Take this opportunity at the halfway point to obviously shout out my great friends and sponsors at NerdTees. NerdTees.ca is where you need to go to find dozens and dozens of incredible loose leaf tea, as well as estate and flavored coffee blends. The caffeine addict in you, you're going to find a home here at nerdtees.ca. You're going to find a bunch of incredible options, including a brand new option that I've never talked about on the show here before, Tropical Fire. Tastes exactly the way it sounds, smells incredible, fantastic taste. It's just one of all kinds of news. Like, I've been a shopper at Nerd Tees for a long time, and even I have not scratched the surface of everything that's available at nerdtees.ca. You want to go there and use my promo code, which is BWFinest. That's going to save you 15% at checkout. You're going to get free shipping in Canada on any order over $100, and you're also going to get a great conversion rate on the US dollar. Nerdtees.ca, promo code BWFinest, save you 15%, get your free shipping, find yourself something to love, or find someone you love something to love. You can do it on nerdtees.ca. The final game of the week, but not our final game of the week, sees us go to Montreal, La Belle Province, as the Alouettes will play host to the Calgary Stampeders. Now, if you're the Montreal Alouettes, do take some pressure off of Cody Fajardo. Cody Fajardo has had to be a do-it-all for Montreal this year. They've given him, no protection whatsoever. He's had to throw the ball. He's had to run the ball. He's taken some big hits. The run game, quick passes, getting the ball out of his hands quickly, have him taking fewer hits. Because if Cody Fajardo gets hurt, Montreal might be the worst team in the East Division. I'm not saying they're terrible, but if he gets hurt, he's so much of their offense and so much of their team, so much of their success is directly Cody Fajardo related. If he gets hurt, it might be the end for them this year. And if you're the Alouettes, don't settle for field goals. The Calgary Stampeders are the second least efficient scoring defense in the CFL. Of any game, you're going to want to use this game against the Stampeders to go for it more often on third down. You need to keep possession of the ball, and you need to go for the end zone. You cannot settle for field goals in this game, especially with the Stampeders offense kind of starting to percolate back up here a little bit. You cannot settle for field goals in this game. You've got to go for the throat if you're Montreal. I expect them to do that. If you're the Calgary Stampeders, do dominate the line of scrimmage. Pin your ears back, send extra pressure. Montreal cannot protect their quarterback. Abjectly cannot do it. They've allowed the most sacks in the CFL. They've registered the fewest sacks in the CFL. So in terms of completely dominating the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, Montreal's pass rush, not very good. Now, they did just sign Sean Lemon on the defensive line. So they obviously know that their pass rush has not been good enough. And they're bringing in a guy like Sean Lemon who will be exceptionally well rested. And that will certainly improve their pass rush. But in terms of their O-line, they can't protect their quarterback. So it is imperative on you, if you're the Calgary Stampeders, to send extra pressure in the pass rush, get in Cody Fajardo's face, put him on the turf. And if you're the Calgary Stampeders, don't lose faith in your run game. Now, we talk about winning the line of scrimmage. The last two games for the Stampeders on the ground, They've run the ball 29 times. Not terrible. I'd like to see a little bit more, but not terrible. Those 29 carries have only turned into 92 yards rushing. They have had 2 rushing touchdowns, so that's good. I think one was from Tommy Stevens. The other one would have been from Dietrich Mills. So 2 rushing touchdowns, that's okay in the last 2 games. Only 92 yards on 29 carries. It's not great efficiency, but they have to stay committed to that. They absolutely have to stay committed to that. You can't expect Jake Maier is going to throw for 450 yards every game, so you have to be able to run the ball. Luckily, they have a very good running back there in Dietrich Mills. They have a lot of faith in their run game. They cannot lose that. To me, this game boils down to 2 questions. Who's better, Calgary's offense or Montreal's defense? They've both been exceptionally efficient this year. Calgary's certainly coming on strong here in the last couple of weeks. Montreal's defensive efficiency has been pretty good most of the season. And who's worse, Montreal's offense or Calgary's defense? We just talked about how Calgary's defense is the second least efficient defense in the CFL. Montreal's offense is the third least efficient offense in the CFL. Yardage is all right, but not really turning it into points at the rate that you'd like to see. So which one of those things breaks? If the Alouettes can't protect their quarterback, those questions might be moot. Quite frankly here, even though Montreal is coming off of their bye, so they will be well rested, even though they are at home, even though they are a slight favorite here, I don't think the Montreal Alouettes are the better team. Certainly not from the way they've played both of these teams have played over the last few weeks. I think the Stampeders are coming on here. I think the offense is figuring it out. And as long as the defense doesn't completely crater, I think the Stampeders win this game outright. This is an upset pick, but I'm going to go with it. Let's take the Calgary Stampeders on the road in Montreal to get the upset win here over the Alouettes. I'm putting an official moratorium on talking about Jake Maier in terms of, I want more from the quarterback position. I'm going to take the Stampeders to get this win outright. So obviously Montreal's laying -2.5 here as a home favorite. I like Calgary to win. Give me the +2.5 on the Stampeders. Total in this game set at 47 points, a pretty good total as far as I'm concerned, but I do think it slides over because I think Montreal will certainly be able to score their points. Calgary's been scoring their points over the last couple of weeks, so give me the over on a beatable number of 47. In Calgary, Montreal, let's go Stamps 26, Alouettes 24, barn burner of a game to end week 8. So we're going to go Calgary winning that game straight up. Give me the +2.5 on the Stamps. And now we come to Touchdown Atlantic 2023, the Saskatchewan Roughriders and the Toronto Argonauts meeting in beautiful Halifax, Nova Scotia for the second straight year. Second straight year? Might even be third. It seems like it's always these 2 teams in Touchdown Atlantic. Look, if the Argos are still willing to, keep giving up home games to come down here and play, I'll watch the Argos play anytime. Both of these teams come into this game on the tail end of back-to-back road games. I'm considering this a road game for both teams because it's a neutral site, and it is. Sasky was on the road last week. The Argos, this will be their 3rd consecutive game away from home. If you're the Argonauts, do not change a damn thing. There is an Argos formula to winning football games right now, and it's surprisingly similar to the Blue Bombers formula of the last few seasons that's given them so much success. Great offensive line play. They've only given up 6 sacks all season long. Obviously establishing the run game, 2-headed monster there with AJ Ouellette and Andrew Harris. Let Chad Kelly do his thing back there, man. Throwing the ball, running the ball. Chad Kelly can do it all. And then turn it over to your defense, an opportunistic, talented defense that right now is the second most efficient defense in the CFL. That's the Argos formula, and it makes them very difficult to beat. Don't change it. However, if you're the Argos, don't trick yourself into thinking you're unbeatable. The last 2 weeks, either at the end of the game or late in the game, the Argos have been within 1 possession of their opponent. All right, so I think it was against Montreal 2 weeks ago. That was a 1-possession game. And even though they basically doubled up Hamilton in the game last week, at one point late in the game, that was a 1-possession game. So the Argos can't take their foot off the gas here. They can't pat themselves on the back. Kind of similar to what I was talking about with Ottawa a little bit, but in a different context. Toronto has every reason in the world to pat themselves on the back. They just can't do it and expect to have their success continue. You know what I mean? So, like, they can't trick themselves into thinking they're unbeatable. These are not blowouts. If you're the Riders, do find the silver lining with Mason Fine. Obviously, well, first of all, really cool that last week we had the first CFL game ever, I believe, to feature 2 Indigenous starting quarterbacks, which was really cool. But again, you got to find the silver lining with the way Mason Fine has played. He's got over 77% on his completion percentage so far this season, had 284 yards last week. He only took 3 sacks, which means the Riders were able to mostly protect him in the pass game, and he's feeding their top weapons, which is exceptionally important for a backup quarterback. You take the combination of Tevin Jones and Sean Bain, they caught 17 balls for 149 yards in that Riders game last week. So, look, I think Mason Fine, obviously imperfect. He had a couple of interceptions, but he's doing what a backup quarterback who's trying to establish himself as a low-end starting quarterback in the CFL, he's doing what you need to do. He's high-efficient passes, feeding the top weapons, not putting his offensive line in positions where they can't protect him anymore, like holding the ball for 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds. You're going to take a holding penalty or you're going to get sacked. He's getting rid of the ball. He's getting it into the hands of his receivers. He's doing some good things. And that's why it leads directly actually into my don't for Sasky. If you're the Riders, don't panic. Tranquilo. Do not panic. It's early in the season. You know you're going to be without Trevor Harris for the long term. You cannot panic now, because if you do, the rest of the season is going to be real bad. But moreover, you got a half-game lead on Montreal. They're in tough this week. You got a 1-game lead on Calgary and Hamilton, both games that they could potentially lose. All of those teams could potentially, and you could certainly visualize them, losing their games this week. So Sasky's got the inside track here in terms of the early playoff picture. It's just a matter of staying afloat. Until Mason Fine's got his legs under him as a starting quarterback, established as a starting quarterback in this league, which hopefully you would hope that he would get to maybe by midseason, it's just about staying afloat. It's not about winning every single game. It's about staying afloat. You're playing a great opponent this week. Tranquilo, calm, stay the course. Obviously, the Argos are unlikely to go unbeaten this season, so the quote-unquote loss watch is definitely on. Like, they're going to lose a game here somewhere where you would have not expected them to lose the game. There's a strong likelihood of either rain or maybe even thunderstorms for this game. So as somebody that loves rain and loves thunderstorms, I'm actually kind of weirdly looking forward to it. So you got to take that into consideration in terms of a potential weather impact. I think I would need to see the Argos at least lose a game against the spread before I start calling them to lose. They're 5-0 straight up and they're 5-0 against the spread. They keep beating teams and they keep beating Vegas. Until they lose one of those games, at least against the spread, I don't think I can start calling them to lose straight up. So we are going to go ahead and grab the Toronto Argos here, despite it being their 3rd straight road game, to win Touchdown Atlantic. And the Argos come into Touchdown Atlantic as heavy betting favorites, minus 10.5 against the spread. That is obviously a very big spread, but for the most efficient offense and second most efficient defense in the CFL, I think they cover that number against what is at this point still a backup quarterback who's missing a number of his top receiving options. So let's go ahead and lay that minus 10.5. I think the Argos win this game fairly big. Let's go ahead and lay minus 10.5. Feels like a number I might get half pointed on again, like Winnipeg last week. Total in the game set at 47.5 points. I do think this game goes over. Obviously, big believer in Chad Kelly and what the Argos are doing on the offensive side. I do think the Riders will score I do think the Riders will score some points. I think they'll score their points enough to get this game over. Let's go over 47.5 points in Touchdown Atlantic, Saskatchewan, and Toronto. Let's go Argos 34, Riders 18. So obviously, like Toronto to win, laying the minus 10.5 on the Argos and taking the over. There you go, folks. Those are my picks for week number 8 in the CFL. I'll go over them here with you one more time. I've got the Ottawa REDBLACKS beating the Hamilton Tiger Cats 28-23, laying -3.5 on Ottawa in a game that goes over 49 points. I've got the Toronto Argonauts beating the Saskatchewan Roughriders in Touchdown Atlantic 34-18. I'm laying -10.5 on the Argos in a game that goes over 47.5. I got the BC Lions beating the Edmonton Elks in Edmonton 23-10, laying -9 on the BC Lions in a game that stays under 43.5 points. And I got the Calgary Stampeders upsetting the Montreal Alouettes in Montreal by a final score of 26-24. I'll take Calgary to win the game and give me the +2.5 against the spread in a game that goes over 47 points. Those are the picks. It's Tuesday, so you know what that means. Let's go over my options here for CFL Fantasy since I have not crafted my roster yet. Quarterback, I'm not changing a damn thing. Dustin Crum over everybody else. His price tag this week, I think, has come out that it's like $7,500. Okay. He's still going to be probably the least expensive quarterback option. And I think they're going to win their game. I think they're going to get up over, mid-20s in points. He's doing it all. He does it with his arm. He does it with his feet. He is being fairly careful with the football. So no reason to not take Dustin Crum as the big value play at quarterback this week. Running back, AJ Ouellette's going to surprise absolutely nobody. I'll probably take a good long look at Dedrick Mills in that game as well, or in the game against Montreal as well. They're not a fantastic run defense, so we'll take a peek at that. William Stanback might be a sneaky option. His price has fallen because he hasn't been as involved over the last few weeks, but Calgary really struggles to stop the run, so Stanback might be a sneaky good option there. Wide receiver is a little trickier this week. The BC Lions options, where it's going to be Dane Evans, I'm kind of 50-50. I'm kind of lukewarm on them. Toronto, it's so difficult to figure out who the top guy is going to be, even though Curly Gittins has really come on over the last couple of weeks. I'll probably stack somebody from Ottawa once again with Dustin Crum. It worked out last week, stacking him with Justin Hardy, so I'll probably look at doing that again. Mark and Michelle, speaking of the moratorium on criticism being over, Mark and Michelle is that guy, as well as Trey Odoms-Dukes, who had a really good game for Calgary last week as well. So that's probably a lot of spots that I'm leaning on the wide receivers. Defense, it's the BC Lions. Yeah, you got to spend up on the Lions defense. They're probably going to be 11,000 something. I think you have to spend up on them. They're I don't think anybody's close to the BC Lions in terms of just off their defensive talent. I mean, it's BC and everybody else, and they have obviously a real juicy matchup this week. So I think you got to spend up for the Lions on defense. That's the show, folks. It's in the books. Touchdown Atlantic coming up this weekend. I'm very excited for it. I can't wait to see a stadium full of Atlantic Canadian football fans rabid for a team down here. Randy Ambrosi. I wonder if you watch this show. That'd be really cool. If you do, let me know. But let's get the Schooners on the go, eh? That's it for me. Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, fueled as always by the incredible folks at Nerd Tees. Tasty and delicious. Touchdown Atlantic. Enjoy the games in week 8. We'll see you again for week number 9.